Major depression is more than just temporary sadness. It's a serious disorder that occurs when chemicals in your brain don't work properly. According to the American Psychiatric Association, major depression affects more than 350,000 people here in North Carolina. One of these North Carolinians is Father Philip Leach, a Catholic priest at UNC Chapel Hill. Dr. Tom Linden reports.
It wasn't always so easy for Father Philip Leach to lead a service. Father Philip, as his parishioners call him, is senior pastor at the Newman Center, the Catholic church under renovation at UNC Chapel Hill. Not so long ago, Father Philip was so depressed he struggled to do his job.
My first prayer, the first words out of my mouth every morning when I was in the depth of that depression were, "Lord, just give me the grace to make it through the day."
For years, Father Philip didn't know he suffered from depression. He says he thought he was just overworked and tired.
Probably the depression was present for a very long time in my life, and at a low, sort of almost non-noticeable level. And I just assumed that everybody had this kind of gray cloud hovering way in the background.
Several events darkened the picture. He moved from Fayetteville to Chapel Hill and left close friends. He increased his workload as he ministered to 2 diverse parishes in Chapel Hill. He suffered side effects from a blood pressure medication, and all this was taking a toll.
Seeing him physically taxed more, seeing him hang around after Mass less long, not giving people the opportunity to converse directly with him, turning down social invitations and not being present at things that he would have ordinarily been sort of the lead sled dog at.
Father Philip's depression worsened when some in his parish questioned his leadership.
I remember one of the most awful moments of it when I knew the depression had gotten hold of me was I was standing fully vested, and a lady walked up and got very close to my face, fully vested in my priest clothes, and having just said Mass, and a lady came up to me and put her finger on my chest and said, "I've never hated a priest until I met you." And at that moment, I felt my world just fall apart.
Father Philip was suffering from major depression. He took a sabbatical for several weeks. He sought spiritual direction. He exercised, lost weight, and took herbal supplements. But nothing worked until he found a therapist he trusted and started taking antidepressant medication.
He really began to recognize how catastrophic or awful his thinking was. When conflict would come up, he would project it all the way to the end, and the end would always be disastrous.
What I wanted was just for it all to end. I just didn't want to feel that bad anymore. And the only way I could imagine it was through death.
You're so beautiful. You're a beautiful puppy.
Medication, therapy, and a dog helped change that outlook.
I'm 100,000% better. I feel physically better than I've ever felt. Psychologically, I know I'm better because I don't have that sense of dread every morning. I wake up and I'm glad to be alive.
Father Philip had experienced the typical signs of major depression. They include sadness that lasts at least 2 weeks, irritability, change in sleep pattern, fatigue, impaired concentration, loss of pleasure, and thoughts of death. When you have major depression, cells throughout the brain, but especially here in the front part, don't fire enough. We know brain chemicals trigger these firings. With the proper antidepressant medication, the brain of a depressed person can look normal.
The treatments for depression are very effective. When you look at large groups of patients suffering from substantial, what we call major depression, between 70 and 75% of those patients will respond to the very first antidepressant that they are treated with.
It was almost as though I felt like I was a really talented person. I was like Michael Jordan, you know? But every time I got on the court kind of, rather than being level, suddenly went like that. And oftentimes I made good shots. but was constantly running uphill, you know, literally. And then, so when I took the medicine, it seemed like the floor leveled out and I was able to use my natural talent.
While medication helps lift Father Philip's depression, so does therapy.
Like other biological illnesses, it certainly can be influenced by psychological and social aspects. So we don't want to simply give a patient a pill, whether it's for depression or pneumonia. We want to talk to them, give them support and understanding about their illness and how they can care for themselves.
It's also important to understand depression often runs in families. In Father Philip's case, his maternal great-grandmother, maternal great-grandfather, and aunt all suffered from depression. But Father Philip need not suffer like his ancestors.
My prayer life is better. My relationships with my family are much better. And I feel like maybe I'm getting a chance to pay back my parishioners now, because for so long they were my supports, and maybe now I can be there for them in a way that I wasn't able to when I was depressed.
Even though major depression causes great suffering, many people don't seek treatment. But in cases like Father Philip, therapy and medicine can help control depression so people can begin recovery.